0, 1. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome back, traders. In today's episode, I'm sharing with you all my exact S&P 500 game plan so we all can make some cash in tomorrow's market session, which will be on November the 19th. And if you stay tuned to the very end, you'll see 2 stocks of interest that can also make you some good money in the following days, okay? Now, that being said, everyone, if you want to join me every Monday through Friday, the live stream is here on YouTube at 9:30. If you want the unmuted version as well as the course information and more information for the tiers, then go onto the Patreon and pick one of the tiers you see here. That is right for you, okay? Now, that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the SPY first, and then we'll talk about the top 2 stocks, okay? Now, what I really want to talk about in the SPY is a pretty unique situation. We have everything pretty much going how we want to, and basically the first variation is a direct move going higher, okay? So we do have to be aware of the fact that if we do break above this pivot, which is associated with right around 665, if I can bring this down, then we should be looking for a potential rebound in the market that goes straight up, okay? So don't be too surprised if we get a variation like this, in which we're looking to basically, like we said in yesterday's video, retest that prior high, which sits at 675, okay? So that's the first variation we do need to be aware of. Again, a direct break above that 665.5 level should give us the momentum needed to continue the bullish push up to the upside, okay? Now, secondarily, everyone, I do think we do need to be aware of the fact that in most likelihood, we're looking to try to retest this prior low here, okay? We have a relatively big move down that's illustrated here. And again, looking to retest the low definitely seems to be appropriate. So the first variation, or I guess the second variation, will be the fact that we end up coming back down to this level somehow, like so. And then from this position, we really have to be aware of the fact that we could see a rebound in which we go back up to the upside, creating essentially a micro version of that bigger version that we just mentioned literally like 2 seconds ago, okay? Other than that, though, we could see the market obviously collapse and fail. And if that's going to happen, then the market should just roll over in what should be a pretty obvious visual sign. And then from that perspective, we can obviously and clearly define the market as being bearish at that point, in which we can look for selling opportunities on any future pops to the upside, illustrated here in red, okay? Now, just be aware, everyone, there are several different variations and they can look slightly different, but overall similar. So just be aware that these are kind of like the blueprints for what you need to be aware of for tomorrow's session, all right? Now, with that being said, there's realistically only maybe one other variation that I'm kind of looking at for tomorrow, and that is, again, at the fact that we end up pushing back down to this level and forming some sort of range. So if we push down and don't bounce up, which is what I would be expecting overall, but we end up actually just consolidating like so, then I'd highly like to look for the fact that we should look for the continuation of a bearish range. And a continuation of a bearish range basically would look something like this, highlighted now in yellow, okay? Again, we end up basing out at the lows. We don't break out. We don't break down. We just consolidate. If that's the case, we have a prevailing bearish trend that we would like to see selling opportunities above the prior high because this is a range, okay? Now, again, as always, we will have to find the range midpoint just as you can clearly see defined above us, okay? Now, once we do find that range midpoint, we can figure out the swing highs and swing lows so we can figure out the exact extent to the extremes of the market that we're looking for in tomorrow's session, okay? Now, it will look something similar to this, but again, we have no idea where the range is, so just be on your feet, be nimble, and if you have any questions, then obviously you can join me tomorrow morning at 9:30, all right? Now, that being said, those are going to be the most likely variations for tomorrow. Again, I would like to see probably either this fuchsia line play itself out, or, I mean, that would be pretty much ideal for me, actually. We get back down to this low, and then we can maybe look for a bounce from there. Now, with that being said, let's segue over to the top stocks for tomorrow. Now, Netflix just recently had a stock split, so I thought it was pretty interesting to see what we could talk about in this. Now, ultimately, the first thing that I'm looking at is the fact that the prevailing trend was clearly bearish, right? Now, from that perspective, we were looking for some sort of pullback and a retest of the low. However, as you can see, the market ended up pushing up higher, which gave the difference in the momentum now. The momentum is clearly shifted, okay? Now, with the shift in momentum, we can kind of take this for what it is and actually have this be a segue to what I just mentioned before. A big break up into what is clearly defined now as a range, okay? Now, this range should be looked at as a bullish range, meaning that any breakouts to the downside can be looked to be bought upon to go all the way back up to the prior high, like we just mentioned before. Okay, so this is a good segue. Now, in this circumstance, we can actually more clearly define the range as if as though we couldn't before. So let's just assume that for this range sake, the midpoint is actually going to be something very close to this. All right. Now that's going to be the midpoint. Now we can find the deviations both above and below. So we should see something similar to this as price action kind of forms itself out in its range. Okay. Any breaks above or below to the extremes would dictate a breakout. However, again, we would be expecting a pull back into the lows and then a return back to the prior high. Now, because again, we have the swings, we could say that if we go all the way back down to this 113 level, we should be expecting the momentum to swing now fully above, looking something very similar to like this, in which we can now look to hit somewhere right around 115.5. Okay. Now, other than this, what would be bullish circumstance, we could have a bearish circumstance in which we actually break down, go further, and that will again change the market's momentum, right? We're clearly broken out, which means we're now looking to sell back to the downside. Now, it doesn't have to be this extreme, but just know that that will be what changes the overall momentum in the market, giving the credence and ability to short it instead of going long, okay? So that's kind of the most important thing when looking at NFLX. It seems as though we're in a bullish range. If we break down, then that's something entirely. But I'd like to see the market return back to the upside after coming back down just a little bit into the 113 level. Okay. Now let's finish things up by talking about the last stock, and that's going to be Palantir. Okay. Now we've already mentioned Palantir a few times, and we mentioned two variations. Okay. This variation here, which we can basically scrap, and then we had this second variation here, which is basically what's happening. Okay. That is a bit more tumultuous in the way that it's going down, but for right now, it's pretty much evident that we are looking to try at the very least to retest this low right here that is situated at 164. Okay. Now from where we currently are, it does seem as though the market is trying to go down there directly in this manner of which we have this formation of happening, and it is a cascade going lower. Okay, so if you find ourselves luckily tomorrow breaking back up above that 170.25, you're more advantageous to look for the sell to come all the way back down to the downside, in which we look to hit or come pretty damn close, to the 164.5 level. Okay, so I'd like to see this primary path play itself out, and if we don't get that push going back up for whatever reason, and we find ourselves gapping down, just be aware that we are actually looking for a bullish reversal off of these lows. Then we would be expecting a continuation pattern going lower. Okay, so if we do gap down past the 164 into the 162 area, I would be looking for a bullish reversal before looking for the definitive continuation. Now obviously continuation patterns can happen, so if we do find ourselves not reversing, then obviously that can only mean one thing, right? We're continuing to be bearish. And in that circumstance, we obviously just now need to wait and be patient, look for a nice pop or shorting opportunity as the market goes to the upside, and then short it just like that to the downside. Okay. Now in this particular circumstance, we can arguably use the distance of which has broken to the downside as the measuring stick for the next leg going lower. So in this particular circumstance, you could possibly say that this whole leg here, which was the first leg of 3, would be the measuring stick for this third leg over here. So if we do break down through 162 considerably, we can use this as kind of like a measuring stick for the pop and pull back to the downside. All right. So hopefully you all understood exactly what I'm talking about, but have no fear, because if you don't understand, that is why I have a live stream every Monday through Friday at 9:30, where I trade the S&P 500 on the futures chart on NinjaTrader. Okay. So feel free to join me so you can see exactly how all this lines up, so you can potentially become a professional day trader as well. Now, obviously, it won't be just as easy as seeing my live stream because it is delayed and muted. However, like I mentioned earlier on in the video, if you do want the undelayed, unmuted, and or just course information so you can learn this exact system yourself, then simply look down below for the Discord/Patreon link, and you can pick a tier that's right for you, okay? Now, with that being said, everyone, I just want to say thank you for giving me some of your time. And if I don't see you in the morning for the live stream, then I'll be sure to see you all on the next candle.
I know it's hard to trust so-called gurus. That's why I live stream my trades every single day, Monday through Friday, starting at 9:30 a.m. The live stream isn't for you to copy my trades, it's to show proof and credibility that my strategy works. The stream is delayed and muted to protect my edge. But if you want to see everything unmuted and in real time, check out the Discord and Patreon links below. You'll get exclusive perks and the opportunity to learn the system for yourself, so you don't miss great opportunities just like this one.
All right, everyone. So you're going to be seeing a trade that I just recently took live during the stream, and ultimately you can be a part of this too, so make sure you look down below. But when taking a look at the trade that we just recently took here, it was the objective coming in was the fact that we had a really big move push to the upside, okay? Now this big move to the upside was basically counterplayed by a pullback, and subsequently our entry was to look to get in right above a couple pivots to retest the prior high, okay? So what you're seeing right now is the replay of my actual entry, which was right here at this 68.1925 area. And again, ultimately, like I was saying before, our main objective from this standpoint is to look to try to retest this prior high back at 68, let's just say 38. So what we are looking at right now is my volatility based stop loss in perfect action, okay? Every trade and every day has a different stop loss based on the volatility of the day specific. So when taking a look at this trade specifically, you can see that we came relatively close to getting stopped out, okay? However, we did not get stopped out, and we ultimately reversed just like we were expecting. Now, obviously a bit deeper of a correction, but everything was within the wheelhouse of what we were expecting. As you can soon see here in just a few seconds, we ended up getting that first target as it hits right there. And then with a little bit more patience, we did end up getting the second target as well. Now just be aware, after you get your first target, you do want to stop the risk, which is why we did pull the stop up to right around and or above our entry pivot, okay? Now from this standpoint, again, we were just waiting, being patient. And I was referencing in this part of the video what we talked about in our afternoon game plan videos, okay? I was basically saying that we were looking at this in terms of that green case scenario that we mentioned on our nightly recap videos, and that we were essentially looking for a continuation going higher, okay? Now we kind of phased that back to where we were. We did have that bigger move that went up, and now this is the three-legged pullback, and again, the retest to the high. Now, at the very least, I am expecting it to retest the high and potentially continue going higher, which is why we have those targets above us, okay? But in essence, we ended up getting that next target with a bit of patience. Definitely some patience was required. And then we ended up tightening up our stop loss and then getting trailed out without hitting the extension, okay? Now, all in all, this was a $2,500 trade. So if you want to be a part of the situation just like this, then be sure to look down below for the Discourse Patreon links, or come and join the muted, delayed live stream every 9:30 here on the YouTube channel.